folks, I'm Rick Braswalis, and along with Fantasy Sports Writer Association Hall of Famer Greg Kellogg, we host the Sports Affiliation Thursday Checkdown. Our focus is on helping you become a more successful in your fantasy football leagues, but more importantly, to have fun doing so, because as Greg always says, if you're not having fun, why do it?
And we've got a third host that's going to be with us the rest of the off season, Mr. Tip Major, who was the primary host with me for 2 years on this show. So we've got the whole crew here, Rick.
Awesome.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, and tonight, we've got guests, some of the best and most innovative minds in the IDP world. So please join us in welcoming
Jorge Edwards, creator of Fantasy and Frames, FSWA member, Fantasy Pros expert, ranker, and all-around good guy. Jorge, how you doing, buddy?
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great being on the show here with you tonight. Truly an honor to be around such prestigious people and be a part of this discussion tonight. I couldn't ask for anything more, so thank you for having me.
You bet. And our next guest is Mace Riney, writer for Buckswire, which is a USA Today gig, and an IDP ranker for Fantasy Pros, and he gets to work with us as well with the Sports Affiliation.
And Mace was actually the first host of this show back when we did it on Spaces, replaced eventually by Tip. But Mace started it out. First 6 shows was Mace and I.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys, everyone around me. Big room here. I hope we get a lot accomplished and we get to actually, speak our minds about a platform that's near and dear to my heart, and I know probably all the guests here. So thank you guys for having me on the panel here and including me.
Oh, it's great. But we've also got a very special guest for us. Normally, and tonight he's still going to do it, he's our producer behind the scenes, but he's also an IDP expert. So Mr. Iggy Gilbert, he's the founder of the FF7 leagues. He's the co-founder of the Sports Affiliation, and he's an IDP ranker for Fantasy Pros and the Sports Affiliation. And he was co-host for number 7 show when Mace had to step away before I got Tip involved.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Got to see everybody out on the behind the glass and on this side of it, so it's pretty cool. And yeah, we got one more person too.
Yeah, you bet. In fact, Mike Pelton, creator of the world's first IDP league for industry experts and a member of the Sports Affiliation IDP team. Mike, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is an actual pleasure to be here, and I cannot wait to get this underway. Something I've looked forward to all week. So let's get it started.
Yeah, well, we do have to apologize. We were going to have one of my oldest friends in the industry, Mr. Gary Davenport, godfather of IDP. He's been doing it for a long time, but he had a family emergency that involved potholes. And as a Michigander, I know all about potholes. So if he can join us late, he's welcome to do so, and we'll get him in. But if not, he sends his apologies to the audience. But guys, welcome to the Thursday Checkdown, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your insight. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to start with the panel discussion right into this. We want to get right involved because we do want to touch on the games a little bit later. But Rick, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, and the first question, and there might be a number of people new to either fantasy football or certainly to the concept of IDP. So that's the first obvious question. Would like the panel to describe what IDP is.
Hey, Iggy, can you put us back up in that 7 one? Because I'd like to get everybody equal time. Perfect. Thank you.
Do it.
So let's start with Iggy since he's up top, and then we'll just go Mike, Mason, and Jorge, and then on the next question, we'll go the opposite direction.
All right. Yeah, I tried to put us all on the bottom, but I can't figure it out.
This works fine.
Okay. Yeah, IDP just stands for Individual Defensive Player, where most people play with, I'm assuming, still a team defense, which is still okay with me. But IDP, you get to put specific players from the defense, and based on how your stats are set up in that league, you could have defensive lineman, linebacker, defensive back. You could have all IDP flexes, which means you can play any position, or you could have like, no, this guy's a defensive tackle, this guy's a cornerback, this guy's a safety, this guy's an outside linebacker, this guy's an inside linebacker. So it is quite customizable, but the beauty of it is, you can incorporate the other side of the football, which is a lot of fun. The biggest plays in football basically come from special teams and defenses. So it's a fun way to play fantasy football, get points on both sides of the ball. And that's what it basically comes down to.
Don't tell Barry Sanders or Randy Moss that the biggest plays come from defense and special teams. Mike, do you have a different view of what IDP is?
Don't tell Ray Lewis anything different.
Right.
Is what I would say to that. But for me, it's it's fantasy football. In its purest form to me. It gives credit where credit's due. It's a full game. On both sides of the ball, those guys put in a lot of work, and I think they deserve to be rewarded. And fantasy football is, growing at a very fast rate. And if IDP can pick up on that, I think those guys deserve all the clout too. So I think you should give credit where credit's due. And, just like I want you guys to think about it like running back, wide receiver, tight end, defensive tackle, linebacker, defensive back, so just try to keep simplifying it. I think that's a great way to launch it out to the masses.
Yeah. And I do want to point out that in this great game that happened this past weekend, the Houston defense outscored the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. In fact, two individual defensive players outscored the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. So it also reflects how important defense is increasingly to the success of teams in the actual football games, but also it makes it way more fun to be able to.
Hey, defense made Neil O'Donnell a Super Bowl winner, so okay.
We're getting somewhere.
Mace?
It just adds context and realism to the game. It gives you equal footing on both sides. When you look at your TV pre-snap, you got like 35 to like 25% of the screen is showing the offense. You can't even see the receiver sometimes. You can see the other 65% of the screen, and it's got the whole defense. Now, of course, as soon as the ball's hiked, it pans over, but you're losing 65% of football in a sense. So if you understand snap counts, schemes, just numbers, you're looking at data, you already understand kind of the defensive side of it. So if it's something that you're already doing and you already know the bigger names, especially for like your own teams, right? You at least know one guy at each level who you're kind of pulling and rooting for to like lead your squad. So why wouldn't you want to get fantasy points for knowing that knowledge?
Hey, to piggyback off of what Mason said, I find myself in standard leagues or in PPR leagues or offensive only leagues where it's real exciting when you have a player from both offenses going against. So for instance, if you're playing, the one player from one offense, and then when the other offense comes out there, you have another player from that offense. So it's always really cool to see that concept of it. But if you're doing it from this concept where you have an offense and a defense, it creates to me, when I actually really sit down and pay attention to it, it really creates like a like, man, you don't want your offense to get stopped, but you want your defense to stop him. It's really crazy.
Hey, if we can pick up first downs, and as Matt Milano can get that tackle after the first down, there's ways to sort of.
Hey guys, we got to hear from Jorge. Do you have anything to add, Jorge?
I mean, playing IDP is just plain old-fashioned fun. Like you talk about, everyone that we've talked about, the balance it brings to the game of fantasy football. We all talk about when we're talking about on offense, man. For example, the tight end position. Why are we still using tight ends? They don't score a lot. You know who scores a lot? Linebackers.
You want to know who scores a lot? Travis Kelce has always scored a lot.
Five elite tight ends, right? Versus a plethora of linebackers. You can roll 34, 40 players deep. Defensive linemen, you can roll 25 to 30 players deep. Defensive backs, it's the same thing. All can give you comparable scoring as you would find on some positions on offense that scoring is lacking. So again, it really helps level the playing field. so to speak, and it gives you more things to pay attention to while you're watching the game. You're already watching it already. You might as well absorb more of what's going on in front of you.
There was another question, and it kind of talks about where IDP fits within fantasy football. Does it replace or supplement standard fantasy positions? We've been talking about some of the positions.
Start with Jorge.
Yeah, so it supplements, it augments, however you want to say it. It just adds more value and adds more strategy to your drafts, to your season, to how you maintain and manage your rosters, how you assign waiver priority. There are just so many different ways to build a winning roster. And so what, a little bit we were saying before we went on air, like at the end of the day, as an IDP manager who plays in a lot of leagues where it's offense and defense, I want points, right? And I don't care if I get them from my wide receiver or my linebacker. If the scoring is comparable, I'm happy. Like, just give me the points wherever I can get the points. And now you're giving me more options to get points from by using IDP in my league. Once you go IDP, you never go back, in my opinion.
Yeah, it can be as much as you want it to be. I think if you want to add, 1 to 3 players because you want to dip your toe in the water and figure out how it goes, that's cool. And if you want to dive right in, you can do that and do true position, which is my favorite. I'm sure we'll probably hit on that in a little bit. But I like that it adds balance and it adds, I guess, a bunch of different variables and strategies for how you approach the offseason if you're in Dynasty, and then just the drafts in general. In Iggy's league, if I'm at the corner on a 1-2 turn in the first and second round, maybe I do want to consider linebacker because someone might get cheeky and there might be a run or something else is going off. There's so many different ways to attack it and try to get people to buy it and just more strategy. So I think overall it just adds to the sauce and the depth of your league.
Yeah, supplement for me too was the answer there. And, it just opens up so many other doors. Waiver priorities become a whole situation, on Tuesdays. And we talked about trades a little bit before the show, opens up a lot of doors there. However, I do want to say, once you go IDP, you typically don't go back, has been my experience. And so much so that I've seen IDP only leagues. So that's for the real diehards there. Maybe Jorge knows a little bit more about that than I do. I haven't exactly gotten into any of those just yet, but
yeah, Gary Van Dyke did a bunch of those for his charity league that he was running, and it's a lot of fun. Just focusing on defensive linemen.
That just sounds like a nightmare. Have a league with no Barry Sanders? I'm
not actually. Yeah, I'll actually agree with you on that, Greg.
Iggy?
Yeah, I guess it's like May said to begin this show, it's just kind of complete. You're not denying 65% of it. I think when you balance it out, that's the whole point of fantasy football sevens. I wanted relative wealth compared to quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. Fantasy football sevens, you don't have to start a tight end. You can't start 2. So it all goes back to the commissioner. I played in some of Gary's leagues. I played in another IDP only setup before. I enjoy offense as well because it's just like, it's just like the NFL. Are you going to be an offensive-minded head coach? Or are you going to be a defensive-minded head coach? And if you go lock up the best IDPs and the scoring is relatively worth it, you're going to have a good team headed into the playoffs. And there's certain linebackers that had just as big spike weeks. I know Greg watched Jack Campbell. He had one of the highest floors of the season. As well, and that was across running backs, wide receivers. He just was getting all that volume of tackles this year. So I think he had one game with less than 6 tackles. So it's
yeah, but wasn't that in the fantasy playoffs?
One of them.
Hey, listen, scoring system in offensive systems, you have half point PPR, you have full point PPR, you have no points for receptions. You can give carries. I mean, it's very diverse, but there is some standards. In a PPR league, you're probably getting 1/10 of a point per yard. You're getting a point for each reception, and touchdowns are 6, and usually passing touchdowns are 4. I've seen 3 and 6 for passing as well, but so it's somewhat standard. How about IDP, Iggy? Are they standard in IDP? Are there standards, like 1 point per tackle or something?
No, there's not really a standard, but you are going to see kind of these basic scoring systems that'll take over. Some people put an emphasis on Tackles, you got a 1, 2, 3, 1 point for half a tackle, 2 points for a tackle, and 3 points for a bigger play, sack, fumble. I just kind of look at probability. Like the leading sack player this year broke the record, and Myles Garrett did it with, what was that? I should know that number, 23 and a half, 20, 22, 20, yeah, 23 and a half. And that's not that many. That's just not that many for a season. So there's a lot more relative wealth for me on sacks. I think you typically see more points per sacks across all IDP formats. But then you'll see like some leagues only give a point for pass defended, where the leading pass defended person is going to have maybe 18, 19, about 1 per game average is going to be the leader. So I think you should put more points in those statistics as well. But when it comes to IDP, you got tackles, sacks, quarterback hits, tackles for loss, QB pressure, passes defended, interceptions, fumble, forced fumble, fumble recovery, a touchdown, of course, a block kick, kind of more on special teams, but a lot of defensive players play on special teams. So those are your basic statistics. And I used to be like, oh, we got to unify the IDP scoring, but I just like creativity too much. Like, make your league worth it. If you're in a PPR league, yeah, you probably need, 2 points per tackle to balance out, all these ridiculous 1 or 2 yard catches that they got, 1.1 points for. So
let me ask you something, Mike. When you talk about like a sack, does that also count as a tackle for loss, a tackle, and a sack? Do you get all those points for one play?
Yeah, that's something that you and your league need to come to an agreement on. There's options for that, and there's options to make it worth, just a sack. And if you do have all those combined, of course, it makes, guys like Myles Garrett even more valuable. But in the league that we just put together, we voted on all the points that were, what kind of scoring system we were going to have. You have IDP 1, 2, 3, you have big three, you have balance scoring, and then you could even have a custom scoring system if those don't fit your needs. But that's something for you and your league to come together on. IDP is a big step, and making sure scoring is ironed out is a huge step in the right direction, and making sure that you keep your league's attention and things don't get too out of hand. We don't want linebackers outscoring Pat Mahomes out there every week. So that's something to consider. But Jorge I can't wait for him to talk about it, because he had hey, if we're going to do half point PPR, we should use this scoring. If we're going to do full point, we should do this scoring. And once it was put to me that way, it kind of like, okay, that is a pretty universal way I think that the industry could get behind. But other than that, Iggy kind of said it best. He rattled off all those different things that we get points for, and those are all the different things that we're kind of ignoring, I guess, in offensive only leagues. We're just sort of jumping them into one pile and say that's what you get. But there's so many great plays that come out of that. So
okay, so Mace, we introduced Mike as the creator of the first Industry Experts IDP League. I was invited to that league. I have played in IDP in the past, but I don't know IDP. Please tell the audience who my defensive coordinator is.
This guy with 2 thumbs right here.
There you go.
To join an IDP freaking league for like 3 years now. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity. And then I get to learn the offensive side a little bit more, kind of from, one of the GOATs, as the kids say. So definitely extremely privileged to do that. And I can't wait to kick all your guys' butts in it.
Me too.
And we probably should have voted on if.
Please expand on what Michael was talking about with your thoughts on scoring versus offensive scoring.
Yeah, it really just comes down to whatever you want your league to have. And hopefully you have a good commissioner that's willing to listen and kind of rock the boat a little bit. I like to take it a year at a time. I use IDP 1, 2, 3 that was created by Jordan Rains. I have a league that I'm doing that in this year. And then guys will kind of give me feedback and whatever we like or don't like, or, maybe we need to, nerf some of the positions or, what have you. But it's all about whatever you want. Like he was saying earlier, and probably Jorge was definitely there, the great IDP scoring debate showdown, stare down of like 2021 on Twitter was like insane.
Oh my God.
And one thing that I learned through that is that there doesn't have to just be one scoring system. But you have to understand as a drafter or someone that's attending a league or in a league what the scoring is and where to look for rankings or where to look for stats or which ones to actually look for. Because like Iggy and Jorge is about to say, some leagues are tackles, some leagues are sacks. Some leagues you get points for the sacks. And then like there's all kinds of stuff in between, like Greg and Mike were talking about on stacking stuff as far as sacks and tackles for loss, and it can get super messy. So I like to keep it pretty fresh and like, I guess, kind of like soft on the first year, and then go from there because it can get messy.
Jorge?
That's a good point.
So for the way I view IDP scoring, and I agree with everybody, all the panelists, that make it what you want. But if I'm also a big proponent of, like, if you're going to try IDP, like, go into it, like, make the scoring worth it. Like, if you are, only getting like half a point for a tackle or something, it basically makes your IDPs irrelevant compared to your offensive players. So then what are you doing? Right? Yeah. Put some skin in the game. Give some of these plays more tackle point values. For me, in particular, I love 1, 2, 3. I love big three is something I've always wanted to try. But then again, you go to balanced scoring, and for me, I look at balanced scoring as something like, okay, well, what's the scoring system that'll make my defensive linemen, my linebackers, and defensive backs comparable to each other, in addition to comparable to the offensive counterparts, right? And one of the things that tend to get pushed back a lot by the people who are newer to IDP is like, I don't want my linebacker to score more points than my Jamar Chase. Like, well, I'm sorry, your linebacker got 32 points and Jamar Chase got 18. Deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way it is. But that's what makes it fun. Again, like we said a little bit earlier, I don't care where the points come from. I just want points.
Exactly.
Okay, now I do have to say, Jorge, I'm directing this to you first.
Sure.
What stats matter the most in most leagues? With it being this diverse, it could vary from league to league, but generally speaking, aren't tackles king in IDP?
Yeah, I mean, tackles are what establish your fantasy floor for any position, whether it's the linebacker, defensive back, or defensive lineman.
How are they generally scored? Is it 1 point, 2 points, 1.5 points?
There is no set. So every major platform, that you can get on your phone, like ESPN or Sleeper or Yahoo, and so on and so forth, they all have like their own default scoring settings. But like if we were going to use like Fantasy Pros, for example, they have their own type of scoring, and theirs is 1.5 for a solo and 0.75 for an assist. And that's something that you should also take into consideration, is that they break down tackles not just into a tackle, but like the type of tackle that you're getting. Right. So a solo tackle would count for more value than an assisted tackle. You want the guy who's getting more solo tackles because they're racking up more individual accomplishments than the one who's just tag teaming it with somebody else. So that's kind of the breakdown with scoring with tackles. You get into giving value to the defensive lineman. Well, way back in the day, it was just sacks. But then you realize that there's more to getting a sack. There's the efficiency metrics that we like to call pressures. So what are ways that we can get pressures involved and turn those into fantasy relevant metrics? Okay, well, tackles for a loss, hitting the quarterback behind the line of scrimmage in the process of getting a sack. A quarterback hit, again, you're hitting the quarterback while you're tackling for a loss, getting the sack. So plays like that are what matter. Defensive back, it is very tricky to make defensive back relevant consistently week in and week out, just because there aren't a lot of like customizable settings you can put for defensive back scoring. So what you really have to hammer home in is like what Mace was alluding to, the pass deflections earlier, bump those up in value, increase the amount of big plays, like the impact plays. Like we like to talk about like your basic metrics, like your tackles, basically your tackles. Then you look at like your impact plays, like your forced fumbles, your fumble recoveries, your interceptions, the sacks. Like give those even more point value, kind of inflate them to a degree. That way you are compensating for any like lower base metric that somebody else might be getting, like a defensive back just getting a tackle. You know what I mean?
Okay, so now I know Tip has a question, and so in an effort to speed it up, I'm going to ask Iggy, Mike, and Mace. Do you agree with everything Jorge said, or is there a specific stat that you think is more important than tackles?
I don't think it's a stat in general. I think it's opportunity comes first. I think it's is your player consistently in a position to be around the ball? Like something like interceptions for a corner, it's hard to really like gauge that because it has to do with targeting and different structural stuff on the offense. So I think first off, you just need a guy that has opportunity. And then for a linebacker, if you're looking at someone that's going to need opportunity, then you start looking at the green dot linebackers, because like a quarterback on offense, there's a quarterback of the defense, and that more than not, maybe one or two teams might have a defensive back doing it, but more than a linebacker.
That leads me to one quick question before we get to Tip. Iggy and Mike, this is directed to you. There's a cornerback that is known as the best cornerback in football currently, so much so they call it Certain Island. So
yeah, but he
doesn't
terrible
get picked on a lot because everybody knows he's really good. But he's the best cornerback in the game. Can fantasy reward him? Yeah. Or does he just not score because nobody picks on him?
That's a good question and a good thing to be aware of, because you have other guys on the other side of the ball like Kyle, or on the same side of the ball like Kyle Hamilton. That he's just as big of a name and he is valuable. But to your point there, if he's that good, people aren't throwing at him, and if the ball's not coming at him, he's not getting what Jorge just said is the most important thing, which is tackles. So. Defensive back, especially like cornerback, is a little bit unique where you almost kind of want the bad ones. I want the ones that these guys are picking apart. I want the ones that, these quarterbacks are taking a chance against. So,
like Riley would be more valuable than
Pat Surtain in this league, right?
And if I can add to the point, though, is that what you're looking for are players who are on the field because they won't score if they're off to the side. So number of snaps is an important
snap percentage is.
Then also where they play on the field. So someone who's a box safety has more tackle opportunities than somebody who's a safety or even cornerbacks. What cornerback is sometimes in the box as opposed to being more of the percentage of the time they're on the outside corners. So, but that's all that what makes IDP fun because it teaches you or perhaps pushes you to learn more about how defense is successful in the NFL.
All right, let's go over to Tip's question.
Okay, so, for somebody who is new to IDP, like I find myself in IDP leagues and I forget about the IDP players and I just go for the offensive player just because that's the way my brain is wired when it comes to fantasy football, right? So I had to redirect that focus the last few times I've done IDP. But I want to ask you guys, what is like the single most important thing to do during your IDP draft? Or what is that mistake that you cannot make? We're going to start with you, Mason, and then we're going to go to Jorge.
Okay, I'll just say one just to kind of keep it going. My biggest thing is fade defensive back. Obviously, look at your scoring, but too many times, like they were just saying earlier, you want to go for the bad corners, the guys that are going to get targeted the most with the most opportunity. So, the box safeties are going to go and everyone likes them, and you'll miss out on a Kyle Hamilton. But the position itself has so much turnover every year. It has the most turnover out of any other position. So I would just say fade DB, and my last 3 picks in any round are always defensive back.
Awesome. Okay, so Jorge, to piggyback off of that, when are you starting to draft a defensive player in a league like that has offensive players that we're going to get you a ton of points depending on your scoring? But when are you starting to say, okay, I want to get that defensive player?
Once I have my starters for offense set, then I go to defense. Then we're talking probably round 7, round 8 is where I'd go. And to Mason's point, while it's recommended to fade defensive back because of the variability. Linebacker, super deep. You can find alpha linebackers way deep in your leagues. Elite defensive linemen, there is a cliff. Like you have like top 10, top 12, and then it gets scary very quickly. So addressing defensive linemen, elite defensive linemen like an Aiden Hutchinson, which I know Greg is a huge fan of, somebody you want to target in your IDP leagues in the early rounds, after you get your offensive players.
So I used to draft Travis Kelce in the first round. People thought that was crazy taking a tight end in the first round, but Travis Kelce would outscore the tight end too by 60 points a year. So he made such a big difference. It made up getting a second tier wide receiver or running back easily by that one position. Is there Myles Garrett clearly this year probably was a similar type talent. Would you take somebody that you expect, a Max Crosby, a Micah Parsons, would you take them in the 2nd or 3rd round instead of waiting till the 8th round? Any of you?
It depends on the scoring. Like if I'm getting, 6 or more points for a sack, and my tackles are getting counted for 2 points or 3 points or more, you better believe that that is in the discussion as far as taking an IDP early. It really depends on your score. That's why I like the FF7 so much. Like, you could rationalize taking an IDP in round 1 or 2 because you want to get the positional scarcity on your side. You want to get the advantage of that on your side. So yeah, you could definitely make the argument for it. But if it's a league where it's a, like a fantasy pros type of scoring, I would not take a defensive lineman or any IDP.
And Jorge, you're giving away all my secrets here. Okay, yeah. I
Wait a minute, before we go
any of my
any
league
further,
mates are watching. Yeah.
in order to get to the games and not go 2 hours, we're going to start directing our questions to 2 people at a time. So, Rick, you're up.
Okay. And we kind of talked about it before the show too, is like the tools available or where people can find information on the IDP positions. Do you find it tougher to find that information currently? And what are some good sources?
Name who you wanted to go to, Rick.
Oh, well, I know that. Let's go with Iggy first, and then we'll do Mike.
I mean, you're looking at some of the good resources up here on the screen. I mean, Jorge's got great ones over at the Fantasy and Frames. IDP built in with Fantasy Six Pack, which I don't know if Mason's still doing work over there or not, but he used to. But I mean, I just look at matchups. We didn't talk about it in the last question. Coaching matters a lot to me. And when you sign up for Fantasy Football Sevens, I make a cheat sheet. I've made it for 15 years, fantasy football, and it's coaching. Coaching matters a lot. Is this person going to blitz a lot? Do they play their base formation a lot? So that's important. And then as far as information, I'm going to look at that coaching matchup still. Like, this offensive line is bad. Let me look at it. We got a rookie quarterback that we're playing against next week. Guess what? We're going to fire off our defensive ends on that match. I'm playing Kyle Shanahan this week in the 49ers. We're going to fire up Cedric Gray because he's going to just shadow CMC everywhere he goes. So I look at matchups. Fantasy football to me is all about matchups. You got to take advantage of the coaching and the Jimmies and the Joes, the X's and the O's, and the Jimmies and the Joes. So that's what I look for a defensive matchup.
And Mike?
Yeah, I did a lot of driving, commuting. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here and give some free plugs. I got, IDP Nation was a great podcast for a long time. The IDP show, those guys are phenomenal. They have the after show as well. IDP show has a guy specialized, Mike Woolert, for just linebackers. They got Johnny the Greek for just defensive backs. Somebody help me out. Who's their defensive line one? I know I should know that. But they have another guy specialized for just that. Moving over to John Macri. I don't think maybe John Macri's their defensive line. I was just about to mention John Macri for PFF. He puts out stuff on X all the time. The teams that give up the most tackles per game to certain positions. So once you dive into that, I know the Niners give up, the most tackles to linebackers. Okay, who's playing them this week? I go see who's playing them this week. Like they just said, Cedric Gray's lining up against them. I'm going to plug him in instead of Nate Landman, and that information's spoon-fed to us on the offensive side. It literally shows us on a lot of platforms where the teams rank against wide receivers, against running backs. You got to do a little bit of homework, and I think the more it grows, hopefully we can have that stuff. I don't want it spoon-fed to me. I'll take a fork, but I think it could be a little bit more common knowledge.
Great. And this question's for Jorge and Mace particularly. Are defensive stats predictable, and how much variation from expected points scored exists on the IDP side?
I think that roles are more predictable and the outcomes kind of fluctuate depending on matchups and other things that we've kind of talked about today. Defensive backs are more so like matchup driven. You got to look at who's in the slot. If it's like a Brian Flores defense, if you've really just got 2 linebackers or just 1 linebacker and a crap ton of DBs like the Rams like to do sometimes, so that they only have Nate Landman. But it really just depends on that. And then production swinging on the defensive line. You can have a guy like Micah Parsons, right? And now he goes over to Green Bay, and now they've got Rashawn Gary and Van Ness over there just absolutely eating. So kind of same thing with Austin Booker for the Chicago Bears with my boy Montez Sweat on the other side. So I wouldn't say stats are predictable, But if you draft a guy like Max Crosby, you're going to want those stats, right? Like that's like a big name IDP. But also if you draft a guy like Trey Hendrickson, you really got burned this year. So nothing is predictable. Things always fluctuate.
Nice way.
100% agree. You know, it comes down to really opportunity and location to what you were saying, Rick, on the field of where they are. And you can look at efficiency metrics and saying, like, for example, tackle rate. That's a big efficiency metric a lot of us like to look at because we're looking at how often or, you know, how on target are they with bringing down their opponent. You look at missed tackle rate. How many times are they whiffing on a tackle, you know? So you obviously want to pick the players who are most efficient at what they do and are playing the most time on the field at their respective positions. And then from there, you get some level of predictability in terms of usage, but in terms of like actual point total from year to year, that is very unpredictable.
Tip, do you have anything?
No, I think the only other question I did have is I wanted to know from Mike, like, who is a sleeper that you're looking at this year coming up? I know last year, for me, when I was looking at a couple of IDP leagues, I was looking at Abdul Carter from the Giants, right? Because I was feeling like, oh, he wasn't. But then I started reading some reports about how he's not healthy all the way and he's having some character issues. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to steer away from that. But like, who is a guy that you're looking at? It could be a rookie coming into this 2026 season. It could be a guy who was 2025. You're looking forward to their next or second year. But who's a guy that you're looking to that may not be on a lot of people's radar?
I'll tell you, one of my favorite things to do with IDP, a lot of times rookies don't, even the great ones, don't have great rookie seasons. And some of these guys get their chance second and third year. By that point, especially in our dynasty leagues, they're forgot about. If you're not, it's what have you done for me lately is with some of these guys, thinking about bringing some of my offensive friends to IDP. If you don't produce right away, boom, you're hitting the waivers. Okay, so now it's the end of the season. And I'm looking at some of these guys that are, maybe they were drafted and there was an aging vet that was in front of them and they're going to get their shot next year. And maybe I can throw an early dart and pick that guy up before the rest of my league mates even know that roster position's up for grabs.
Name one you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I know. Jihad Campbell.
From the Eagles.
No. Okay, so you said an IDP name, and I'm an offensive guy. You got to give me position and team too, buddy.
Oh, he's a linebacker for the Eagles. He was drafted really high, and he's got Nakobe Dean. He's got Zach Bond in front of him. One of those guys might not be there next year, so I'm looking for the young rookie to step up in their spot. And those are one of those. He might be a guy who didn't help a whole lot of managers out this year that they're not too happy with.
Okay, so Iggy, we were talking earlier about the variability of defensive scoring. How does it compare to offensive scoring? Are they comparable? Because you can have huge days by offensive players too, but you can generally predict what a running back's going to do each week or what a wide receiver is going to do each week. You're never going to be perfect, okay? We know that. But you feel pretty confident going into each week knowing what your guy's going to do. How about your linebackers or your defensive linemen? Are they predictable?
Yeah, I think you have players that are relatively safe with their floors, your green dots, your interior linebackers, your hybrid safeties that come down and play the box as well as can go out in some man coverage and so forth. But other than that, we all have those players on offense that's like, well, if they don't get a touchdown, we're not going to get much, and the same's true with IDPs. Like, well, if Max Crosby doesn't get a sack, he may not, if Khalil Mack doesn't get a sack, if Tuli Tulapulu doesn't get a sack, they're not going to have a good game. But you do have guys that are very consistent, high floors. You can depend on them. And like I said, it goes back to the offense. The correlation between good IDPs and bad offenses, it doesn't miss too much, okay? So if you got a bad offense, you can really count on your defensive players get more volume, not winning the time of possession battle offensively, so you're getting more defensive snaps. And then, like, if they're playing with the negative game script, a lot of times they're going to get more tackles. That was what was impressive about our defensive linemen. All of them were on bad teams. I mean, when you look at the All-Pro team, Myles Garrett, Jeffrey Simmons, Brian Burns, Max Crosby, Aiden Hutchinson, so that's Detroit, Las Vegas, Giants, Tennessee Titans, and Cleveland. none of those teams made the playoffs. That's the outstanding fact about some of
The Lions got screwed by the refs.
Oh God, here we
I
go.
was waiting for it.
Yeah, two
Come
OPIs,
on,
two
Oh,
OPIs
yeah.
at the end of the game, and they're in the
Wasn't
play.
that offensive coordinator?
man. Look,
Okay, I'm
We-
gonna
that-
direct
thank
this one
you.
to Jorge first and Michael next. I want to know what's the most unique IDP scoring system or scenario that you've run into in your years playing. Jorge?
So I was never a big PPR guy. To be honest with you, I was always a very non PPR person. I still love non PPR to this day. So when I came across IDP 123 back in 2021.
Explain that. You've said it
So,
twice now.
yeah. So IDP 123 created by Jordan Rains. It is the default scoring IDP scoring setting on the Sleeper app. Okay, where you have 3 points for a pass deflection and 2 points for a solo tackle and whatnot. It makes every single IDP position inflated in terms of their value of points they can put up per week. So, for example, in a more conservative setting, your defensive back 30 may be around what a wide receiver 3 or 4 is, right? But in an IDP 123, because of the elevated tackle numbers in terms of the scoring, you can roll 40 or 50 defensive backs deep and get that same type of comparable production that you would get at a wide receiver 3 or 4. So when I saw that for the first time, I was like, okay, all right.
Wait a minute. Now you need to clarify something for me.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 3 or 4, are you talking somebody that's between 25 and 48, or are you talking about the number 3 overall wide receiver?
No, by 12s, going by 12s.
right.
Okay, thank you. So okay, because I don't want any defensive back
I don't either.
that's ranked 40th scoring with Jamar Chase. I'm
No.
sorry.
Campbell over Bijan Robinson.
Exactly.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. So when that came across, it was a very, to what Mace was saying back in 21, scoring was a very contentious topic. But the fact that this came out, and credit to Jordan being able, he messaged Sleeper. He's like, here's all the data I got spreadsheets, I got this is why this matters. And he convinced Sleeper, the most popular fantasy football app out there, to adopt his scoring as the default scoring for the Sleeper app. So it was groundbreaking in the world of IDP.
So it is kind of, going back to the earlier question, that is kind of a standard scoring system now for IDP.
For the Sleeper app, it is.
Right, but the Sleeper app is the biggest app out there, isn't it?
Sure. I mean, it is.
I would bet there's almost as many IDP leagues on my fantasy league as a Sleeper. Maybe not, but there's a lot on my fantasy league.
Well, what about Yahoo or ESPN? Do they have IDP?
Yes, they do. ESPN does. So there's another thing to take in consideration. So a lot of, for example, Sleeper, they clump IDPs into defensive linemen, linebacker, defensive backs. Now places like MFL or ESPN, so we call those 3 IDP position designation leagues. There are leagues out there that break it down further, or platforms rather, that break it down farther, like ESPN, where it's not just defensive linemen. Now you can have specifically defensive tackles, defensive ends. You can have linebackers. Instead of defensive backs, you could have cornerbacks and safeties. So you can break down even farther. And MFL offers even more customization, that each of these different positions could have individual scoring for their different positions. So it really depends on the platform. MFL for the longest time it still is to this day, probably the most popular platform for IDP. But people want what they can get on this. You know what I mean?
And MFL, I happen to know personally Mike Hall and Kevin Austin. Kevin's no longer with us, but they were the creators of MFL, and for years, that's the only software I would use, simply because you could customize your scoring system in that way further than you could in any other system. But it was never a user-friendly platform. It was always hard to learn the system. And Sleeper kind of took over because it's easy. It's really easy to use. Michael, what's the most unique thing you've seen, most unique scenario?
Mine was going to be more so, I guess, something I seen and a little bit of a piece of advice. I seen one time Trayvon Walker go in the first round, like top 5 pick of my rookie draft. And I think that, looking back at that and what happened, I mean, it was nowhere near what he could have had and what he could have picked. So I think, the most crazy thing I've seen is somebody get into a league, hey, I'm an IDP, and then they pick the number 1 guy that went overall in the draft, and they didn't do, the research. But that was what I had in mind when I seen that. I'm like, man, what have I seen that's kind of crazy? And I've seen a lot of wild trades, but, let's pump the brakes a little bit on some IDP in the first round of rookie drafts.
They could have picked James
Fair enough,
Gibbs
Rick.
instead, right?
Yeah.
So, my question, I'm going to change it a little bit because, and Jorge, you mentioned true position. And I think that gets into a little bit deeper into it in the sense that you want to make sure that the positions on the platform are accurately reflecting the position the player actually plays. It'd be like a tight end who was suddenly allowed to play quarterback, or a quarterback.
Taysom Hill.
Playing tight end.
Right. So,
Taysom Hill.
and please, any of the panelists, please correct me here. But like when we're talking about true position, it's not so much the position as it is the role that the player is taking on. So, for example, you have in like a 3-4 base scheme your outside linebackers, where their roles are to rush the passer, rush the quarterback, just like your defensive ends along the defensive line. So they would clump outside linebackers.
Don't they just call that edges now?
Those are
Some-
edge rushers. That is correct.
Some sites do, not all of them.
No.
No?
Well, no.
What's the difference between an edge, an outside linebacker, and defensive end?
How we refer to these players, we call them edge. You go on a platform, there's not like an edge player that
it's not listed as edge.
not listed. Yes, exactly. But but for example, NFL, to which Gary Davenport did a tremendous job in getting true position being the default there, is that, for example, a Max Crosby who's along the defensive line is categorized as a defensive lineman, whereas you get, TJ Watt, who's an outside linebacker, also is categorized as a defensive lineman. Why? Because their roles are to rush the quarterback. You know what I mean?
Jorge, if you can put TJ Watt at a linebacker spot or a defensive end spot, which one would you pick and why?
I would put defensive lineman spot, defensive end spot. I do want to say, going back to the scoring just for a second, and trust me, this ties into this. Like we said earlier, tackles, the bread and butter that establishes your floor. One of the things that is tricky about defensive linemen, like I said, there's a cliff where things fall off. Where you find value, however, is to get those defensive linemen who also get tackles and have a good tackle floor. That way, when they hit the big play, it's not just a boom or bust scenario. You know what I mean? Whereas TJ Watt is more of somebody who just cashes in on the sacks and the pressures and the quarterback hits. Somebody like his counterpart in Pittsburgh, Alex Highsmith, he's actually more of a better run stopper than he is an edge rusher. So when he gets the tackle floor already trying to stop the run, and then he gets a sack on top of that, well, now you're finding value in the later rounds of your draft.
Where do you put my boy at?
He is top 5 defensive lineman. He is one of the top best out there.
Where do you put my guy at? Crosby.
I think he's there as well.
He's there.
I have Crosby over him, honestly.
Once he gets to the Niners, he'll be top 5.
Oh, no, stop it. Stop it.
Okay, so my question was going to be about league management, but you guys have already answered that. So I'm going to the one that Rick skipped. This will be our last panel question. Then we're going to ask you guys about the playoff games. First and foremost, can your defensive scores detract from the opposing team's offensive scores? In other words, if you get 50 points from your defenders, now I know that's really low for the way scoring is, can that detract from the offense of your other team? Is there a software that does that? I'm thinking MFL does, but I don't know for sure. Mace, let's go with you first.
I was about to say, I don't think I've seen anything like that off the top of my head.
No, I mean, the only way I could see it happening is like if, I don't know, we'll say this weekend you got a fantasy team in the postseason or whatever, you're doing some special league and Sam Darnold throws a pick, and you happen to have the defender that gets the pick
Right.
and then runs it for a touchdown. So essentially now you're losing points for the pick and then yardage possibly depending on your league. But now you're gaining points because of the pick and then going down. So essentially you're just like canceling yourself out.
Kind of does.
I'd rather see my defense stop Rick's offense.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of it too, is that some weeks it will happen. I've been down to championship weeks and I've got 2 linebackers.
But
just
what
because I'm in a
software
pinch.
allows you to take my defensive score and subtract it from his offensive score?
I'm not sure if that
I don't know
exists.
if that exists, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's pretty
You might be
complex.
honest with me, Greg. You better trademark that, bro.
It sounded like a cool idea. is what I
Everyone
had.
needs love. Everyone needs the points and needs to be rewarded. I mean,
Yeah, see, Jorge likes a lot of points. Me,
I do too.
I'm fine with the 21-20 game.
Oh,
I don't need
ew.
457 to
In
23.
fantasy?
Well, no, but I mean, if
In
you-
real life, yeah, but not in
Yeah,
fantasy.
not in
I want
fantasy,
200
right?
plus points in fantasy. I want to feel good about it, man. Like Scott Fishbowl,
I mean,
I haven't hit 400 yet, but when I do, I'm going to be so happy.
All right, guys, it's time for the playoff discussion. Rick, you want to introduce it?
Yeah, sure. And what we're going to do, and we're going to try to go quickly just because we're like 9 minutes, but we'll look through each of the games that are in this round of the playoffs. And if you could pick out a winner and also one IDP player you expect to have an impact on the game this week. And the first we'll go with is Buffalo at Denver.
I don't know.
for me,
Yeah, but you get to answer first, Jiggy, just because of that.
Hey man, I think Denver's going to win this game. I think Buffalo got pretty lucky to get past Jacksonville. They lost Gabe Davis. Josh Allen's a little banged up. Their defense really isn't great, even though they have Sean McDermott. So I think Sean Payton wins it, and the IDP to watch in that game just going to get the low-hanging fruit, as Dennis might say. And I'm going to take Nick Bonito. I think he's going to get Josh Allen. I think he forces a fumble. I think it brings alive Denver Stadium. And I think they capitalize with the field goal.
Mike?
I'm going almost complete opposite. I think Josh Allen solidifies himself. Starts his path to greatness until he runs into the Niners at the Super Bowl this year. But I'm going Bills. And last week, Shaq Thompson came through. Had 100% of snaps, 8 tackles. I'm looking for that. I don't know if Bernard's healthy 100% yet, but I'm going with Shaq Thompson.
He's questionable.
Yes, that's what I've seen.
Mace?
Yeah. So I think Denver wins, but on Buffalo, if you have to pick a Buffalo guy, go safety Cole Bishop. He can be a monster. I think he's kind of in a position to have a coming of age game. And then for Denver, who I think is going to win, big play Dre Greenlaw, just because I know how awesome he is in big games like this. Alex Singleton as well is phenomenal.
All right, Jorge. Who
Yeah.
wins and what player to look for?
Denver is going to win. That defense is from front to back is stacked, and I'm going to piggyback off of what Iggy said. Nick Bonito, he is going to have a playoff performance like he's never had before.
Okay, Jorge, who wins San Francisco at Seattle, and what defensive player are you looking at?
So I am going to go with Seattle. Sorry, Mace. I know. But I'm going to be looking at Nick Emenwari, rookie out of South Carolina.
11.
Playing more of a box safety role down the stretch of the season. You love seeing, Seattle trying to take away the running game from the 49ers, and they'll need all the bodies they can to stop CMC. So look for Nick Emenwari at defensive back for the Seattle Seahawks.
All right. Yeah, and I'm grateful that you said defensive back because I was going to ask, is he a linebacker? I don't know.
He can be.
Mace?
Plays like a linebacker.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know the Detroit. I know Brian Branch is a safety, but he plays up in the box a lot. And I'm assuming he's what you guys mean when you say a box safety because he
Correct.
blitzes and does all that.
Yes.
But I don't know what a box safety is. So Mace, who wins and what player are you looking at?
But I have to
And
pull
don't
for-
tell me Fred Warner.
I know he just got declared out today, but I don't. You shouldn't bring him back too soon, anyways. But anyways, I think the Niners win just because I'm going to be a homer here. Cornerback Upton Stout, and then in true position leagues, Yatur Gross Matos. If the Niners are going to win, they're going to need to be disruptive inside, and he's a big body, long arm guy who in the past has created pressure and opportunities for the Niners defensive line.
Kittle.
No Kittle, but that's just going to affect the run game. Hey, put some respect on Tom's though, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he can catch the ball.
Yeah, he
Mike?
can. He learned from one of the best. I'm going with the Niners as well. We get our revenge. We're 1-1 on the season. I know that last game looked rough, but we got it in the tank. And then I'm going with Eric Kendricks there. He was phenomenal last week. Had the play that sealed the game for us. So stepped up, and that's been the theme of the year for the Niners. So.
Iggy, are you going to make it a tie, or are you going with the 49ers too?
Yeah, no, I'm going to take the Seahawks, and I'll be quick. I'm going to take Ernest Jones to have the game. He's going to have to shut down CMC. Everything else will come pretty easy, I think.
Tip, you get the next game.
So for the 49ers, for the Texans.
Houston
the Texans versus the Patriots, guys. We're going to start with we'll start with you, Mace. We'll start with you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that New England's going to win. I think Nico Collins is out. I don't want to bring on an offensive guy during an IDP show, but sorry, I guess I'll be that guy. But I'm going to go with Harold Landry, defensive lineman for the Patriots. Dude, had him all year.
You're breaking my heart. Defense travels, buddy. Defense travels. Who's next, Iggy? Who's next, Tip?
So next we're going to go with Jorge.
I think Houston actually causes the upset here because this edge rushing duo, pick one, Will Anderson, defensive end. Although I'm going to roll with my guy, Danielle Hunter, huge fan of Danielle Hunter here for the Houston Texans. So he's going to have a good game this week versus the Patriots.
Iggy.
I'm going to go Texans. I think Aziz Al-Shahir has a great game, got into the Pro Bowl this year, snuck in. I think he's going to kind of make it difficult for Drake May because he's a very intelligent linebacker. And that's important on the IDP side as well. Intelligence, knowing your plays, knowing where the ball's going to be, they get a big advantage. So give me Aziz Al-Shahir.
And by the way, the weather in New England is going to be horrible. It's supposed to snow during the game, which I think only adds a layer to the defense.
Still got Mike.
Yeah, I'm
All
going to
right,
go. I'm going to go New England, and I'm going to go with a IDP fantasy darling this year, Mr. Marcus Jones. He's been all over it on Patriots side of the defensive ball there. So New England.
Hey,
But we're not helping with the games at all. We're split. Except most people chose Denver. I think it was 3-1 Denver. But the last two games have been split. Rick, why don't you introduce the next game?
Okay, and that's the Los Angeles Rams at Chicago. So let's go start with Jorge.
Man, this is the game, right? You know, we saw the reports that Matt Stafford is going to be wearing a scuba suit during the game because that's what he learned to do in Detroit when he played all those years versus the Bears.
He played inside at Detroit, Jorge.
I am going to go with the LA Rams. Sorry, Chicago Bears fans, but this is a situation where you're going to see Byron Young, who's been so productive this year, defensive lineman, edge rusher for the Los Angeles Rams. He is going to go after Caleb Williams and make his life a living nightmare this week.
Who's next, Rick?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mace.
Okay. I think since it's at Chicago, if it was at the Rams, I would go for the Rams, but it's at Chicago. I don't know if Matthew Stafford can handle it, man. I think Austin Booker is going to get to him a time or two. Defensive lineman. Also, DeMarco Jackson stepping in for TJ Edwards, I'm assuming. So if you're in deeper leagues there, go ahead and take advantage of that free linebacker on the waiver wire.
And Mike?
Yeah, I'm going with Chicago. I think this is the beginning of the end for Mr. Matt Stafford. Plus, my Niners handled Chicago convincingly. And we're going to go with Montez Sweat leading the way there on the Chicago end of the ball. Side of the ball.
Nice. And Iggy?
Man, I can honestly say I don't know who's going to win this game, but I'm going to lean Chicago. I just think they kind of have some magic going this year. And for an IDP in this game, why don't we go Quentin Lake? I think he's still going to have to come up in the box. I think he's going to have to get a lot of those Caleb Caleb's pretty great at passing like medium to deep passes, actually. And I think that's going to be right where Lake will be there to take down some defenders, or excuse me, take down some wide receivers. Loveland's going to be a battle, so Lake's going to have to do some stuff there as well. So, yeah, Chicago and Quentin Lake.
So as a Detroit guy, I love Matt Stafford, but I saw a graphic today where he's like 1-9 in games under 40 degrees outside. Okay, it's going to be 15 degrees in Chicago.
And I was seeing sideways.
I'm sorry.
Like a blizzard going on there.
And my dream Super Bowl this year, since my Lions can't make it, is Chicago versus Houston. I want to see Chicago versus Houston, and I want Houston to beat the Bears because I'm a Lions fan.
Here's the thing, though. You got to remember with the Rams, the NFL wants LA to have a football presence so bad. The Rams are the least penalized team over the past 5 years.
Yeah, and don't get me started on referees because you know where I'll go with that one. All right. So that's it for tonight, folks. I want to thank our guests for coming on. We're going to give you each a minute to tell our audience where they can find your work. Miss you, Mace, but I'm glad to see you writing for TSA again. That's awful nice of you. Mike's with TSA, Iggy's with TSA. Jorge, when you coming home, buddy? I need you over at TSA. All right?
Man, I created.
I think you should come over and do an IDP show for TSA. I really do. That's just me.
I appreciate that. That means the world hearing.
Well, I think Mike would be happy to co-host with you. That would give you two, and you could probably even get Mace to do it. That would give you three hosts to talk IDP every week. And if Iggy's producing, you got another IDP guy on production.
Throw Tip in there. He needs to learn a thing or two about it.
Yeah. So let's start off with Jorge. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Jorge B. Edwards on X, although I'd rather you follow at Fantasy and Frames. Head over to fantasyandframes.com for our articles and our rankings. Catch us on all our social media platforms where we basically take all our content and we serve it to you however you like to absorb it. Whether it's Redraft Dynasty and IDP, obviously we love IDP. I love IDP. Going 9 years now with Fantasy and Frames since I created it back in the day. And just anytime you all have questions, DMs are open. Email Jorge at fantasyandframes.com. Send those questions my way. And gentlemen, thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor and sharing the screen with you and with the panelists.
I got another question for you, Jorge, before you disappear.
Yeah.
You're in that league that Michael put together.
Yes.
With Iggy, Rick, myself, Mace is my co-coach, so Mace, and Michael, obviously. Who's going to win the first year?
I am.
Okay, that's what you're supposed to say. All right. Mace, same thing. Where can they find your work? And who's going to win the first year?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at CaliKing49er17. I'm a writer for Buckswire, which is a part of USA Today. Also TSA and Fantasy Pros doing ranking, and I scout the Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, all that kind of stuff too. Got profiles going at USA Today, so make sure to check those out. And honestly, I think that we're like, okay, I'm going to say someone besides us. I think that Iggy's going to win it, if anyone's going to win it, besides us.
All right, you're fired. Iggy, you want to be the defensive coordinator?
I'm already Mel's defensive coordinator.
AD, all right. Okay, Mike.
You guys can find me at ID Pelton on X. I am going to be launching some articles about the Dynasty roadmap, different pit stops along the way for your Dynasty teams. You guys will see those released on TSA. And then you'll see some content released about the IDP Internet Invitational. We got Axton Harding. We got Hollywood from IDP Nation, Johnny the Greek. Rick's on there. Jorge's on there. Jeff Pomazal, Matt Montgomery, Alex Michael, Gary Davenport, JC, John Glosser, Joseph Hagan, and a couple local friends of mine, David Sanders and Kevin Rader. So look forward to that. And look forward to that. And that's where you guys can find me.
All right, Iggy, you're the last guest. Go ahead.
I'm here every Thursday with the two knuckleheads on either side of me. I don't know if everybody has the same view as me. I love being a part of this show. And I really want to say we got the 2025 All IDP Fantasy Football Team. Rick was a member, Michael was a member, Mace was a member, and we just kind of broke it down and put together what we considered the best, IDPs of the season. Broke it down on a point system, just like to do with the All Pro team. It's a great read. It'd take you probably 10 minutes to read it all. You get to see all of our votes. Look at some rookies on there that might be able on your dynasty league to help you out. And so I just want people to check that out. And if you want interest, fantasy football sevens, it's my scoring format. It's not 1, 2, 3. It's not, balanced. It's something I've kind of created 15 years ago. And it's a great way to get into IDP. There's been literally dozens of people introduced to IDP through that tournament. It benefits Kawasaki's disease, more specifically children and their families that experienced it. And next year's my last year doing it. I don't know if there'll be some commissioner taking it over after me, but I would love to have as many people in there as you can. You can play against Jorge. You can play against Gary. You can play against Bob Harris. You can play against Mace. You can play against some really good people. And it's pretty competitive. So come have fun with that.
And for those that don't know, Bob Harris is my mentor, and I consider him the best of all fantasy analysts anywhere in the world. So if you can play against him, do it. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you sharing your insight, your knowledge, and your time. And we'll be back next week, although next week we're going to be 2 days early because we're going to have a special guest. Mr. Cooper Anderson is coming on. Anderson Cooper. No, Andrew Cooper. Andrew Cooper is coming on. And we're going to discuss building a community. And Jorge, I'm going to give you an invite right now. If you want to come, because you built Fantasy and Frames, you know about building a community. We'd love to have you on as a co-guest. If you want to, if you have time, you're welcome to join us Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to talk about building a community. And we'll also throw in whoever advances in the playoffs too. Got to do that.
I want to say real quick about Fantasy and Frame. Check out Shoot the Gap. It was probably one of my favorite shows. I was pretty religious to that for a while. So if you get a chance, it's always a pretty great show. It can veer into wrestling. It can veer into movies, but it's more just about talking about football with a bunch.
You're just now telling me about it. It does movies. I love movies.
We throw in so many references at the wazoo. You never know what's coming at you. Plus some great IDP content. So
yeah,
well,
great
I'm
IDP.
retired, man. Shoot me some links and I'll go look. Okay. I got time. That's what I got. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Iggy, take us home, buddy.